Today I'm going to talk a little bit about pruning peach trees. It's getting to the end of winter. It's already March. You can do most of the peach tree pruning pretty much any time during the winter, as long as it's not before like a super cold snap. That's the conventional wisdom. I've done that. I've pruned before cold snaps and nothing has happened, but you're not supposed to. So anyway, here we've got one that was planted 2 years ago, and oh no, this was planted last year. Actually, we'll do the 2-year next one. This was planted last year, and it was probably to here as a whip when I planted it. So now it's grown for the season, and we're going to try to figure out what to do. And so in this video, I'm going to go through a first year, a second year, a third year, fourth year, and beyond, to talk about the different things, and as well as a rescue pruning for a kind of unpruned peach. So for the small ones, I'm going to switch to just looking straight at it so you can see exactly where I'm cutting, and I'll explain why. So here we've got our little peach seedling, and the first thing we're going to do is the low vigor branches are going to come off. This one's just a dead little branch. This is a low vigor branch. These are all low. They're just really small compared to the other ones. We don't want the tree to put any energy into those. This one here is a medium, but that's on the low end of medium. This one here is a medium. You can see it doesn't come out as far as the other ones, so we're going to remove that as well. Now, what we're doing right here is building the main scaffold branches of this tree. The branches are going to be permanent for the lifetime of the tree. Maybe they'd be replaced once, but more or less permanent. And what we're looking for is the angle here. This is a good crotch angle. If it were 45 or less, that's really no good. Anything like 60 to even 90 is great, because that means it's a nice strong angle there. It could bear the weight of a lot of future fruit there and not break. So we've already got the open center beginning to start, and the whole idea there is that the middle of the canopy, you keep that open through pruning to let light in. If you don't prune a peach tree, the top will be round, the canopy shape will be a dome, and that's fine as far as the peach is concerned. The peach tree is concerned, it'll produce fruit up there, but it'll be way too high, very difficult to manage. So the idea is the open center keeps the fruiting zone much closer to the ground. So now we've just got to decide which branches we're going to keep and direct a little bit of energy in them. So now I'm facing to the south. The sun is in the southwest now, and so you can see from top down, we don't have any branch coming out to the northeast, because this is kind of, they're all pointing a little bit more to the south. So that's more or less fine. 1, 2, 3, 4 branches is pretty decent. At this point, the only thing that I would like would be another branch coming out this way. The one other thing we'll do here is just prune the branches back. It will bring more vigor to them. So here I'm going to try to zoom in on this. Come on, there we go. So we're gonna choose an outward facing bud here, like this one. And it's a little bit tricky to do. There we go. So that one's a little high. That one's good. I would have made it a little closer if I didn't have the camera in here, which was confusing me. But this bud means that the new branch is going to grow out away from the center. So we're going to prune them all to something more or less like that. This one downward facing if you can. This one can come out like that. And then this one can go out a little bit that way. So that's all we needed to do for the first year. Come on, there we go. And what that should do is these heading cuts on the branches will take all the growth that all those buds we're gonna get will be directed to a few of these buds. And so this bud will get a lot more growth. And what we'll get is elongation of our scaffold branches for that first year. Now here we got a tree that's a year ahead of that other one. Last year, I probably came in and made a heading cut there and there and here, oh, and there. And what that did, and so I cut probably, just like you saw, now I probably cut a few little branches off of here, these points. There's pruning markings there. And so I probably cut those out, and what we got was not the best vigor. This peach had been languishing, but what happened is you can see it's not always as simple as, okay, you prune that last bud and then all of the energy goes to that one, or you prune that, you do that heading cut, and the idea is that all the energy would have gone to this bud. Well, that's not what happened. In fact, it went to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buds, and 5 buds down was the winner, which is good because it was pointing out peaches are naturally inclined to maintain that vase shape. But so in this year, this is probably a better side to be on. So again, the cut was there with the idea that I would have chosen this bud to be the big one. And the tree had a different choice, which is great. And so what we're going to do this year is continue the trend, and we're gonna take out that whole chunk there because we don't want to fill the center of the tree with a lot of wood. And so again, we're just gonna head this one back to an outward facing bud, and hopefully it will work this time. Sometimes that happens if you prune a little bit too close to the bud. So here I've left, I don't know, let's say a little more than a 1/4 inch. And that will mean that this bud won't get killed. If we went much closer, you probably could go another 1/8 of an inch closer and not kill that bud. But yeah, you don't want to leave a long pruning stub because then it's just dead wood, but you don't want to get too close and hurt the bud. So that's a generous distance. So now that will give us more elongation in that branch. And here we've got a little shoot that's growing in towards the center of the crown, which we're going to be taking those off. This one's growing in towards the center of the crown. This one is a little side branch. We can leave some of that actually. This could set up a little bit of fruit there if we want. Probably don't want to give it the opportunity to make fruit this year because it's not having the best growth. And then we'll prune this one to an outward facing bud. This little branch here can stay. Just give that a little clip to go outward facing bud. And then this one, we kind of have to decide where we want it to go. In this tree, it looks like we're gonna have, this will be a main scaffold permanent branch. This will be one. This will be one. And so we've got to decide which direction to go here because all of, excuse the garbage, people are always throwing stuff here. I might actually split the difference here and take the middle one out and let that be a scaffold that splits. That's okay. So then we'll send this one back this way. And then just to balance it out, we'll send this one out this way. And some of these low vigor branches, we wouldn't want this one to take over necessarily. So we'll take those off. And now we're a little bit out of balance. This one has a little too much vigor. So I think I'm going to take that down a little further to be a little closer to the other one. So Here we've got our open center like that, and we're sending the branches out in different directions. And really what you want to avoid at this time in the tree's life is getting narrow crotch angles between the branch and the branches and the trunk, and big branches developing from the center going up if you're going for an open vase. There are other ways to prune peaches, but this is the standard way, and I definitely prefer it. And I'll show you in a little bit some trees that have really never been pruned, and you can see what happens with them. A couple things before I move on to some bigger peaches. This something else you might run into is you planted a whip or a tiny little seedling, or just planted a seed and it shot straight up into a single whip with almost no branches. So all I'm going to do here is, this is something you definitely have to deal with. Here we've got a healthy shoot, and this is actually the original stem of the plant that was planted. It kind of decided to not use that one and put most of its energy into the other one. So just help it make that decision, prune that other one off. And then this one, if we end up with branches coming out of these buds up here, that's pretty high to start our branching. So it probably would be better as far as the long-term health of the tree and the ease of pruning it if we get a bunch of branches lower down. It would be tempting to leave these little side branches, but they're really low vigor. I'm just going to actually cut it below those, and now probably all that rootstock's energy is going to come up here and hit some of these buds and make some really nice branches for us. And then next year we'll be into the next steps. So here's something else you might run into. This tree, it didn't really want to make branches come up and make branches all at one height. It kind of chose them in different spots, and that's fine too, as long as they're roughly evenly spaced, which, by the way, the trees have a natural inclination to do even spacing. They just have usually the tendency to do a little more than necessary for our purposes anyway. They don't really have a preference one way or the other necessarily, but for us to be able to want to get fruit and to be able to access the center of the tree to pick the fruit or to do whatever fruit thinning, it makes it a lot easier to have more widely spaced branches for a person to fit in. So, sometimes people pruning say, this is the optimal whatever. It is the optimal for us, for our interaction with the tree, rather than for the tree itself. Anyway, so on this one, I just worked with that, and this is a pretty weird spot for the peach. Didn't really love being here, but it's kind of getting acclimatized. So again, even at this age, I was foregoing fruit this year, and I pruned mainly just to elongate these branches, outward facing bud, send all the energy into this shoot here, go that direction. This one's gonna go there, here, and there. And yeah, if one branch is taking up too big of a sector and you wish you had another branch, you can let it split there and then take up a little bit more space that way. So yeah, more or less still using that open center form, but just with the wider spacing on the branches is fine. And I'm gonna bring another one out this way maybe, and left this one as well. And there's another thing is, if you want to have a lower branch, there is a way to activate buds, which I'm going to show you in a moment, but this could be brought out. This is a little bit too low though, so I probably won't use that one after all, but anyway, I'll show you how to activate a branch if you don't have one where you want one. So this particular peach was never really supposed to be here, quote unquote. I had planted this with the idea that I would dig it up. It's in a nursery space, and somehow I didn't get around to digging up these two, and they kind of stayed. I kind of always kept thinking that I was going to dig them up, so I never really pruned them the right way. And then last year I said, okay, maybe these are just going to stay here. But on the north facing side of this tree, there was no branch. There was nothing there. So I wanted to bring one into existence. And the way to do that is as you look down the wood, you can see this is a spot where there was at one point a branch, and this here, that has a potential bud. Now that bud will not activate under normal circumstances because it's being inhibited by buds above it that are getting all of the energy and the hormones to grow. So this, although it could grow, won't do it because it's being inhibited. So what you can do there is, last year, I just took a knife and cut the cambium. You can do it in a ring or a line above one of those spots. So it would have looked like this, just score in with a knife. And that prevents that inhibitory flow of auxins and allows this bud to wake up. So 2 of these woke up, and I got a really nice elongated branch in 1 season of growth. And so if you don't have a branch where you want one, that's a way to do it. And it's interesting to note that below that, directly below that, this one also activated, and this one also activated, and nothing on any other part of it activated. That's because that auxin is flowing down and it diffuses through. So the auxin couldn't go inside to this, but it went down here and diffused a little bit. So this branch is less long, and it diffused even more. So this branch is less long. So you can see that perfectly there. Those 3 the 3 branches, the biggest one on top, medium in the middle, littlest one on the bottom. So that's the flow of inhibition. Anyway, so we'll keep this little one too. If we prune it there, we'll get that growth coming out this way. This one's too small, and this one we'll prune to an outward facing bud, and that will be a nice branch heading in the southerly direction. Here, just wanted to show a really good example of what can happen when you prune 1-year wood. This was 1-year-old wood last year. When you prune it back to a single or just a couple buds. So you got a long, foot-long or 18-inch long shoot, and you prune it back to 1 bud, it can direct an enormous amount of energy into that bud. And in 1 season, it elongated that far. So I'm virtually certain that if I hadn't pruned the branch that this grew out of last year, it would have never grown that much. Even with the 18 inches plus, it probably wouldn't have gotten that much energy. So pruning really does bring out a lot of growth. In the last part of this video, I'm going to do a larger peach tree. This one's probably 5 years old or something like that. And tons of growth. We need to do a lot of work to get this, to give us a good crop. So we've got some very low, nice branching on this. So those are the main scaffolds that have been developed. And we do have a lot of growth going into the middle. And so that's the first thing I'll do, is I'm just gonna go in there and take all the stuff, all these nice big red shoots that are growing right into the center. I'm gonna clean those out, and then we'll take another look. Oh, Misha's here. This tree is a really good example of doing the scaffold branches well, but then not keeping them as simple as they should be. So, meaning this scaffold here splits once and splits again, and that creates a lot of complexity for managing. Then you get the branches, the lateral branches from the 2 splits growing in towards each other. They get shaded out, it gets pretty crazy. So it really is better to keep a main scaffold branch pretty simple in terms of not a lot of large branches growing off of it. So I'm gonna do some big correcting cuts to bring some simplicity back to this tree. So the best way to deal with it is just think about it one scaffold branch at a time. So on this one, we've got this big one, and then the main leader, I guess arguably. And I don't really want to get rid of this one and just have some fruit out here, because then there will be a lot of unused space on this branch. So I'm going to take out the middle one. And then I'm going to cut this one back a lot. I think I might have been keeping this branch as a reserve if I wanted to cut this whole thing off and restart it. So I might keep that as an option. Basically, if all of this ends up being not so great, I can bring this one back out and redo the whole thing as a clean scaffold branch. So we'll keep this. Just going to shorten the laterals here a little bit so I can personally get in to that center of the tree. These ones are going back to the middle, so I'm going to take some of those off. And this is another one there. And that's a pretty good structural reset of that scaffold branch. We get to keep a lot of fruit for this year, and yet now we've got better access to it. And the last thing I'll do is probably just shorten this one back and thin out a little bit of these side branches. So now we'll go to the next scaffold. We've got this big branch coming up pretty nicely, and then it gets really confused. So I like this branch because it's nice and low and is open and has a good angle. And these two branches up there are pretty tall. Don't really want it to be that tall, so I might prune one of those to one of these side branches there. And I might take out probably take out that larger branch that's in between these two ones. So I'll just do that and see what it looks like. I just cut this one off and then my camera fell over. So, okay, so I've taken that one off, and now I think it depends on how much of your fruit you want to save, but I think I'm going to take this whole branch off to really simplify. Connected to a kiwi. Now it goes up and out, and it's pretty simple. And there's still plenty of flower buds on here to get a very nice crop of peaches, so that's not too much of a concern. The other general rule of thumb is if you've got branches that are growing in towards the center of the tree, prune those, and if you've got branches that are growing down and out, or too many of them, you can prune those back. We'll go into the finer pruning once we finish the scaffolds. So the other big decision I made here is I'm gonna take this one out. We've got really nice spread and division other than that one, and it's really kind of growing up into the middle. I should have taken it out the first or second year, certainly not this far into the process, but it really shades a lot of this branch out, so I don't really need both of them. And if I take this one out, then I'm narrowing the openness of the tree. So I'm gonna keep it nice and wide and open, and take this one out. And this one's big enough that I'm actually going to make sure I undercut it so I don't strip the bark. Now we're really getting a lot more light into the center of the tree. It's really open. Just got a little bit more scaffold to deal with. Essentially, this one fans out into 3. And I think I'm just gonna take the middle one out. Yeah, I think I might want to saw for that one. But basically what I'm going to do is take the middle out, keep this, and shorten that. And then in this one, I'm probably going to take out this vertical one that I should have taken out 3 years ago, shorten that one, and shorten the main end of the branch. To keep this video a little bit shorter, I won't film those, but I'm going to jump right to the last section, which is, okay, once you've got your scaffold branches, what do you do as far as pruning on each specific branch to get fruit? Okay, so once you're down to a piece of branch that's on your scaffold that you know is gonna be there permanently, peach pruning can be done in a number of ways, but a really classic way to do it is, first of all, if you've got tiny little low vigor shoots, you can either leave them or you can just take them off. It's kind of easier for fruit thinning if you just take some of those off, because the best peaches are born on wood like this, 1-year-old wood. They only put peaches on 1-year-old wood, and the big vigorous ones are where the best fruit is. So you don't really need these little tiny ones. They'll just make small or weak or bad fruit. And then, so once you've identified your nice, vigorous 1-year-old shoots, the general pattern is you head back every other one. So, and I should also say, these are lateral shoots. This is an outward facing shoot. And then the inward facing shoots, like this one, you can remove inward and outward facing shoots. And then of your laterals, you can do head back every other one, basically. So this one's gonna get headed back, this one's gonna get left alone, this one's gonna get headed back, this one's gonna get left alone, headed back, left alone. And so what that will do is, next year, these will grow. They'll each one of these little triple buds is 2 flower buds and a vegetative bud. Flowers will open up, maybe set fruit, and then the vegetative bud here and here will grow a lot. This one, because I'm not pruning it, will not grow very much. It'll set fruit, focus on fruit, we'll harvest those, and then next year that will be the one that gets pruned back. So, as you can see, you take off a lot of wood in peach pruning, but a shoot like this, every one of these has 2 peach blossoms. So obviously they set, 10% of the blossoms can result in a full crop of peaches. So you really can prune very heavily and still get a lot of peaches. And of course, your peaches will be higher quality that way because the tree is focusing more on fewer number of fruit. Here's a cut from last year. This one was headed back, and several of these grew out. Not the best response in that particular context. It's probably shaded because it wasn't a lateral. But anyway, so that will be more or less, you can use that system to go around once you've decided all the scaffolds and all that stuff that you're going to leave. That's a rough guide of head back some of that fruiting wood so that you get more vegetative growth out of it for next year. And then next year, head these ones back. So I hope that helps. That's an introduction to forming, shaping, a little bit of fixing problems later on in the peach's life, and pruning on the individual branch. All right, there we go. A couple minutes later, finished. This is a pretty extreme. This is kind of a rescue. As I mentioned, the tree had the main form done for the first couple of years. You can kind of see like this one, then this one, then this one, then this one. But I think it just escaped pruning for a year or something like that. I'm not exactly sure why. We've been busy, we've had children, things get missed. And so to bring it back into an easier to manage, easier to access the fruit, and more light to all the fruit. So we should get a better crop this year. We also will get a ton of growth in the middle, and we may allow some of that to stay, but we'll probably summer prune that, because when you summer prune, you don't get much regrowth. So we'll probably cover that in the summer. Anyway, hopefully that was helpful. And as always, if anybody has any tips or hints, maybe there's some real veteran pruners out there that can show me better ways to do things, I am all ears. But anyway, thank you very much.